Hi everyone, this is just a short little video explaining how I'm getting the most out of my Mantis X8 archery. The Mantis X8 archery is a small, lightweight sensor that attaches to your bow and tracks the movement of your bow during your shot from setup all the way to the release of the arrow. The Mantis app provides you with all the data you need to be able to analyze your shot properly. It gives you a stability score out of 100, it measures your pitch and cant during your shot, and it tells you how long you take to shoot each shot. The goal for me as a compound archer is to hold the bow as steady as possible during my shot. It's important that my shot goes off in the middle, and the steadier that I hold the bow, the more likely my arrow is to go in the middle. Simple as. So on my journey to get my bow to hold steadier, I needed to identify areas in my bow setup initially that I felt would have the biggest change on my stability. These areas were draw length, peep height, my stop positions, my tiller, stabilizer setup, and finally my holding weight. Before I started experimenting, the first thing I needed to do was set a benchmark. I needed to know how I held before I made any changes. So I shot a 90-hour session in the day just to figure out exactly where I am with my stability. As with anything when it comes to training, I wanted to make sure that I was recording everything that I was doing. I chose to record my Mantis experiments in a spreadsheet, and the first thing I did was input all the data from my benchmark session. I kept my spreadsheet pretty simple. All I wanted to do was record my score and my time. I felt that these were the most relevant to me as a compound. With the bubble in the scope, my cant was pretty consistent, so I didn't really feel the need to record all of that data. But this is the first session, this is the benchmark session, and as you can see from my summary, the average score was 97.2 with a range of 3 and a median of 97.3. The average score is arguably the most important. If it changes any good, the average should be better across a 30-hour session. The range, also important, it will tell me how consistent I'm being. The median I use as an indicator for potential. So if my median is higher than my average, I see that as a setup that has potential to be better with practice. For each area that I wanted to experiment with, I wanted to make sure that I tried 3 to 4 different settings and analyze which of those would be better. Over a 30-hour session, it might not tell me that it's the perfect setup, but it will give me an indication of what is better and what has the potential to work a lot better in the future. So if I show you draw length first, my usual draw length is 30¼ inches. So I just wanted to play around in ½ inch increments, up and down, just to see which kind of setup would be best for me. I went all the way down to 29 inches and all the way up to 30½. Summarized below, you can see my averages here: 97.2, 97.2, 97.3 for 29½ inches, and 97.3 again for 29 inches. As you can imagine, my shot felt totally different between 30½ inches and 29 inches. What I wanted to make sure that I did was rely on the numbers first rather than the feel of the shot, because a draw length change is pretty drastic, and if you're moving it by 1.5 inches, you're going to know that it's not going to feel great straight away. But anything, when it comes to anything like that, with practice, something that doesn't feel great initially can feel great going forward. So based on this first experiment with draw length, I concluded that I'm going to set my draw length at 29¾ My range was very good at a familiar draw length, but my potential and my stability score potential was a lot better, coming down to 29½ and 29 inches. So a happy compromise there for 29¾ This is only supposed to be a short video, so I don't want to bore you with the ins and outs of all of my experiments, but to summarize, really what I'm doing is I'm playing around with 3 or 4 different settings in the areas that I want to play around with, in the areas that I feel would make the biggest difference on my stability. And then once I've found something that's going to be better, I stick to that going forward. So I set my draw length at 29 3/4 and moved on to the next experiments. After playing around with draw length, I moved on to peep height, stop positions, tillers, stabilizer setup. I'm moving on to holding weight next, but as you can see here, this was the setup I went with. I chose to finish on for my stabilizer setup. 15 ounces on the front, 10 on the side at 23 degrees. I'm up to 97.7 now. So as you can see, my benchmark was 97.2 and I'm up to 97.7 now. So I've increased by 0.5 Mantis points, let's call it, for example. So it may not sound like a lot, 0.5, but how is that affecting my scores? So before I started experimenting, I was averaging 695, mid 690s for a 720 outside in my range. And now, halfway through all the things that I want to be looking at, I'm now up to 702, 703 on average. So my scores are improving, and that tiny little 0.5 of a Mantis point that I've increased feels a lot better. So I know that I'm holding the bow a lot steadier than I was before I had the Mantis. And the data shows that I am being more consistent now. I'm holding a lot steadier, and I just feel like I'm shooting a lot better now that I've got a setup that is good for my shot. And I would never have known this without having these numbers to look at. It would have been impossible. I'd have never have gone, I need to take half an inch off my draw length. I need to add 5 ounces to the front of my rod. I need to change my tillers to hold better. I would never have done that without the need to experiment, and that's what the Mantis X8 archery gave me. Once I finish playing around with the setup of my bow, I can move on to things like technique. How does my stance affect how I hold? How does the way I hold my release aid affect the timing of my shot? How does anything change anything? The possibilities are endless, to be honest with you. And it's important that we realize that anything that we do can affect how we shoot. And by having the numbers that the Mantis X8 gives us, we're able to analyze everything that we do for our archery in a much deeper level. So my advice to anyone who has a Mantis X8 or is wanting to buy one, don't be afraid to experiment. You can always move something back, but try different things, because the things that you're not trying, they might be the things that will work best for you. So don't be afraid to try things and analyze, look at it and record everything you're doing, and you will stumble across something that's going to be perfect for you. And the Mantis X8 archery will tell you if it's good for you. The Mantis X8 archery is available at the archery company for £165. If you have any questions, feel free to pop me a message on Facebook and I'll answer any questions you have. But have a look at it. £165 is not a lot of money. When we spend thousands on bows, arrows, sights, etc. to improve our archery, £165 for something that will genuinely improve your archery, it's a drop in the ocean.